Phil Lindeman, Crystal Media News Director, in the studio today, and we are doing our school board interviews, talking to all the school board candidates. We got a packed field, 9 school board candidates, and today I'm joined by Lisa Webster. Lisa, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Good to have you in here. And Lisa, I guess for starters, tell me a little bit about yourself. You're currently on the board, right?
Correct. I'm currently on the board. I was appointed to fill Ginny Bradley's spot when she resigned earlier this year. That appointment ends in November with the election, and the remaining 2 years is why we have 4 seats coming up for the board this go. 3 of them will be 4-year terms, and 1 will be a 2-year term.
And you're running for 4 years, correct?
I am running for a 4-year term.
Okay, great. And a little bit about you. What do you do around town, and how long you been here, and all that good stuff?
Sure. So I've been in Summit County full-time for about 11 years now, off and on in the county probably since the late 80s. Went to school in Colorado Springs, and then went off into the Air Force for a bit. We had purchased a condo back in 2000, and that was intended for vacation originally, and then I retired in 2010. We landed there figuring out what we needed to do, and we decided to stay. So my husband and my son, who is now a senior at Summit High School, is currently living in the county and living the life that everyone loves here.
Fantastic. Great. What were you doing with the Air Force? Were you career?
I was career, 20 years in the Air Force. By trade, a C-130 pilot and instructor. A few other jobs in between there. Is that all you'd like to know about the Air Force? Or?
Yeah, unless there's anything else that you think people would be interested in. That's something people might not know yet.
Well, I mean, I was stationed in Germany, stationed in South Korea before I retired. Got my master's in contract management in Dayton, Ohio. So, got to see the world like I wanted to when I joined the Air Force.
All right. Very cool. And then, that's what I always hear is, I've got family and friends in the military, and they said that, it was just, they wouldn't trade it for the world.
No, it was a great experience, and hopefully that experience will help what needs to be done on the board. Yeah,
and that's what we're moving on to now. So, school board, you were one of the folks that was appointed. It has been a wild 2 years for not just the board, but the school district and parents, teachers, students, everybody like that. I guess let's start right there. As a parent, talk to me about the past 2 years and what made you want to put your hat in the ring to get appointed to the board.
So I was on the board before, from 2015 to 2019. I left the board for some personal reasons with my parents' health, and to focus on college for my son, since he was coming up on that important milestone in his life. But just felt the need to serve our community again, and that's why I'm coming back in.
Because I know there's also folks that I've talked to that said, man, I would not run for school board if you paid me. And I know that you guys don't get paid. But now you're looking at another 4 years. What are your top priorities as a board member right now, and then also if you were to continue on and get elected?
Sure. Well, right now, just coming off of COVID, making sure our students are caught up, because we know that there has been a slide in student academics with COVID, with different learning styles and online learning not being the best for some of our kids, and just getting them to a point where they are confident enough and have the abilities to make it in our ever-changing world, right? Okay. So that's one priority. Second, of course, is our staff. We do have an issue, and this issue is nationwide, of retention and recruitment of teachers and even support staff, right? We've heard CDLs, commercial driver's license, is a field where there's a lot of work to be had and not a lot of people to fill those areas. that includes our bus drivers, right? That include other support areas, includes food services, our janitorial staff, facilities. All those areas are really important because they're the behind the scenes type things that need to happen so we have the environments in place for our kids to thrive.
Okay, great.
And then my last priority is community, really. Making sure that we have those partnerships continuing that we've had before and making new partnerships. And community could be considered local or even the global in a sense, right? Because there's so much outreach that can happen these days with technology that we can bring in those kind of expertise that would make students engage better than what we have maybe locally. We have a lot of resources locally, but bringing in that global aspect is also important because our world just keeps getting smaller and smaller.
Like you were talking about with the digital learning, it has its pros and cons. It can be a great tool for that global learning, for that experience outside of what people get in the Summit County bubble. But sometimes it's like all styles of learning. Some kids just don't do that good with it. It's a distraction more than it is a help.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly right. I will say, for instance, my son, he did fine with online learning or remote learning. That said, did he like it? No. He could do it, but he wasn't a big fan of being socially distant from people, right?
Okay. Yeah, and I've talked to some other candidates who are saying, one of their top priorities is mental health, getting the kids back to, a little bit of sense of normalcy. And they were saying it doesn't take reinventing the wheel. What it could take is just, kind of the return of events and social interactions and, parents and students and teachers and everybody getting together the way that, that we've been so used to since the start of school in general.
Right.
Yeah.
And I would expand that to our staff too, right? I would say that a lot of our staff are stressed out, right? We've been in this COVID bubble inside of our Summit bubble and just getting to a point where everyone is feeling comfortable. We still have COVID out there. We know that people still turn up positive, so it's not, we just don't have the ability to get to that normal, truly normal point that we want, right? We desire that the pre-COVID being free without our masks and whatnot, but we're just not quite there yet to ensure that our kids stay safe while they're in the district's hands.
You were talking a little bit more about community, and I wanted to expand on that a little. So obviously community means also the folks that help guide the school board and the school as it moves forward. I was personally educating myself on what a school board does and some of their requirements and who they also need to look to because sure, you are in charge of kind of putting out a blueprint for academics, but you are not fully in charge of building an entire curriculum. You just kind of put that out there and then let the pros take care of it. You superintendents, your teachers, your principals, and then they are helped by also folks in the community. Talk to me about that process of building a large group of folks that can help guide the curriculum that's best for our students here in Summit. How do you see your role in all of that?
So it's more of a guiding role, right? Just like how you mentioned. The board members themselves are not necessarily the experts of curriculum, but we become experts in providing good policies and process from which that can be springboarded by the superintendent into operations, right? So and that feeds in with what our community wants for our kids. So we have so many, and I'll mention nonprofits, but nonprofits aren't the only organizations out there. I mean, we have the Mountain, who Vail, A Basin. They provide support to the district via grants and whatnot. Copper Mountain. I mean, we are surrounded by mountains, so those organizations also feed into the district and provide assistance. Let me think. And then, of course, families, right? Mm-hmm. They're the ones who have the biggest stake in the game, aside from their children, to make sure that their kids get the best that they can get from our public school system.
Okay. And that brings me to another question. I know that it's been a little bit of a hot topic. I personally don't have any children in the district, but I have been hearing from some parents that there's concerns about the subjects that are being brought up, books and curriculum. And, we talk about stuff like even critical race theory, things like that. What is the board, or what's the role of the board when it comes to, some of those more controversial topics, things that are being discussed in the schools? Where do you all sit on, either guiding or leading or giving any sort of input on that?
So the board is made up of individuals, but we have to act as one voice. And part of that is getting data from our superintendent, getting data from the staff to make sure our students are getting what they need in school. Controversial topics such as CRT, equity. Let me think on that. Sorry. It's our job to communicate out what the vision is. There will always be hot topics, I think, in education that it just some subjects just don't rub people well. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean that it can't be part of the discussion.
Okay. Yeah, and even as I was digging deeper into again some of the state statute type stuff, the real nitty gritty of what it is, it's that controversy shouldn't be shied away from, but it should be approached in a way that relates back to the academic standards that are set by the board.
Yes.
And the super.
Yes.
And those academic standards, like you were saying, it's something that takes a lot of different people to put those together. Right. It's not just you guys saying this is how it's done.
Not at all. And I would also say that presented in a way that it's in an academic situation or setting, that there can be objective looks at different aspects in our history, right? History's come up quite a bit, and in our in our environment, our political environment, in our news environment, and how do you discuss these things without pointing fingers, right? I mean, you don't want to belittle people, but we've had things in our history that I would say I'm not so proud of, and I'd say that's true of probably every country in the world, that there have been things that have happened in their countries that, looking back, could you have prevented it? What things could you do to make the situation better? Because essentially, we want to, what education I see doing is leaving the world better than where I started as an adult, responsible for actions.
Yeah, and in the end, the role of a board of education is to help inspire that, guide that, and then leave it up to the professionals, the superintendents,
correct,
principals, teachers,
correct,
the big group of folks that you guys have there, right, underneath the umbrella.
They are highly experts. They are subject matter experts of education. They've gone through the educational process to get that training, so they can they have the skill that's needed for learning, and they can identify what students need what. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know if this is drawing too much of a, or making too big of a stretch, but like you said, in the Air Force, you were pilot, right? You were the expert in piloting. You
Correct.
Wouldn't look to somebody that, I don't know, you wouldn't look to a mechanic to teach you how to fly the airplane. You could look to him to to repair,
Sure.
but not to fly the airplane.
Right.
Yeah.
Although you'd be surprised how many mechanics can fly aircraft. So,
Right.
but you also, as a pilot, I would say pilots are equivalent to where the teachers are. You're out in the field, boots on the ground, or boots in the air, however you want to look at it. And you have the ability to reach back to experts on the ground that if you need assistance in some kind of issue that's coming up throughout your mission, you have experts that are not maybe in that stressed environment that can help you through that environment, similar to what our superintendent and building principals do for their teachers.
And yeah, talk a little bit about superintendents. We've been through quite a few in the past, 3 years. Current superintendent, Crawford. Talk about the working relationship with him right now. I know that he's still only interim. He's not going to be here, or at least not guaranteed to be here for, another 3-4 years. But so far, talked about the relationship with him.
So, Mr. Roy Crawford, I think he's doing the right things we need right now for our district. COVID was not a helper in how our district carried through superintendents, but that wasn't the sole reason of having our district having some stress put on it. I'd say that I was reading the other day, the average superintendent now stays in a district somewhere between a little shy of 4 years and about 6 years. It's not how superintendents used to be, where that was they came into that position to be that position. It looks like, from what I've read, that it's kind of like the finalizing, that's what you aspire to do. As you grow as an educator, you may grow into that leadership role, and that tends to be one of the final roles that you have before you retire. Going back to Roy, sorry, I'm getting off topic. I think his every child, every day mantra is addresses equity very well, right? I mean, equity is what you're determining what the need is for every student so that they can reach their full potential. So he is looking at the systems, making sure that's aligned with the Colorado standards. He's also making sure that there's feedback loops that may have been broken that are back in place. But I mean, our principals underneath him, he has a great staff around him. So it's just getting that motion and his vision based off of the board's vision to flow through the district. So we are heading in more of a similar pathway. Not to say that we weren't on a similar pathway before, but I think we took a little bit different routings. So I think he's really aligning us to make it more efficient, more effective with the resources that we have.
Okay. Yeah, and even though I haven't spent too much time covering school board stuff in depth, it's like Chalkbeat. They're one of my favorites because they are so good at covering what they do.
You should come to a meeting sometime.
I definitely should, but I do spend a lot of time tuning into and going to town council meetings.
Nice.
And school boards remind me a lot of the way town council works.
Sure.
Where you have your town council, your board, that gives direction to the superintendent, the town manager, who then is in charge of coordinating and making sure that it gets done with all the other people, your department heads, your principals, your staff, your teachers.
Right.
So, it's very similar to, the way that towns are run. Lots of moving pieces, but it all sort of trickles down. And like you said, in the end, it's a matter of people all moving in the same direction. Because if you don't have that similar vision, similar direction, shared vision, shared direction, things are going to break down. It's hard to keep things moving forward. And in the end, helping the students, the citizens in the town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're the core of the effort. Right?
Exactly. And so that's how I've been thinking a little bit about, school board elections, is that, it's just as important, I think, as electing your town council. Because lots of folks are saying, well, why should I care about school board? Why should they care about school board?
Well, because school board, they're forming our next generation, right? They're in charge of the safety, the education, and preparation for that generation to go out into the world. And if you care about our world, you should care about them.
And finally, test scores. I've been asking everybody about test scores. We've been hearing that they are on the decline, and some of it is, of course, like you were saying, due to COVID and changes in learning and just the volatility for everybody involved. But it wasn't just simply COVID. It's kind of been on a downward trajectory. How do you think it can be remedied?
That's a great question. It goes along with the alignment, making sure we are doing things that are science-based and proven in terms of learning, making sure all our kids have what they need to learn the skills. And I'm not just talking test-taking skills, just to learn skills, right? Skills, knowledge-based skills for critical thinking, having that scrutiny, being able to answer a question with the information that they have to the best of their ability. And hopefully that capacity will grow as they grow in the system, right? Because you don't expect the same level from a first grader that you might expect from, or that you should expect from a senior in high school, right? Because we've fed that bank of knowledge, their brain, with multiple things, and then also hopefully providing the environment where they can ask questions and they can be curious, i.e. asking questions, where they can stick their neck out and still recover, without feeling beat down, having that tenacity and that grit to come back, even if you fail, having the opportunity to fail, first attempt at learning, right? And coming back stronger from that and learning from that.
And Lisa, I think that was the last thing that I had for you. That's a great way to end it. But if you had any final thoughts, any other thoughts on school board election, things that we didn't cover, final things for folks?
I would say the school board offers a local, just like the town councils, the example that you brought up, that's our most local democratic process that people can actually be involved and not have middlemen in higher level politics, right? Because at the state, yes, you can write the governor, but typically you go through a representative, right? And in Congress too. So at this level, get involved. Get involved with your community if you aren't already, and find out more about the public school district. There's lots of great opportunities for volunteering, and we need these volunteers too. So thanks for your time, Phil.
And Lisa, thanks again for your time, making time to come in here, and we'll be staying in touch throughout the election, and best of luck.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. Lisa Webster here on Crystal 93.